problems we've kind of uncovered is that students have such a limited time in Geneseo. It's only 4 years. So what would you suggest doing to make their impact on projects long-lasting?
Well, A, get involved. Well, B, do what some of these merchants uptown have done. Started out as students and then they opened up shops. The Geneseo Scene, which goes out to the alumni, is doing an article on SUNY alumni that own shops in Geneseo. So there's a chiropractor guy that's up there. Touch of Grace, it's on the opposite side of the street, and the ballet dance people.
Royalties.
And Jackie McCausland, she's a Geneseo alum. The guy that runs the Buzzo, who's not quite an alum, but he came to college as a wrestler a long time ago, and I don't know if he graduated. But he
There was a giant accident.
Yeah, so it's really kind of funny that the Scene is going to do, and the spring issue is going to do an issue on that.
Well, of course, the alum who is most on the radar screen right now is Greg O'Connell. So, Greg O'Connell.
Oh, O'Connell, yeah. Yeah, very much on the radar screen. But yeah, in terms of some of those projects, like I say, you're here a relatively short time, and if you're not in, it seems like in a business school that there's more opportunities, the internship kind of things that come up where you can actually get involved deeply in a project. But you know, this is just somewhat of a training ground, and you're going to go on to live in your own communities and be able to do some of those things with them as well. So I think this is just kind of a place to learn what to do.
So you said earlier that townsfolk, they get woken up by drunk students, walking around, making noise and all that stuff, damaging some property. How much do you think the townsfolk needs to get involved? Because it is, after all, the students' fault for all this whole problem. But do you think the townsfolk need to get involved at all to try and solve it?
Yeah, and one of the things that we have said, don't necessarily just call the police on Monday and say there was a party next door to my house on Saturday night. That does absolutely no good. But one of the things we've suggested is A, call the authorities. If a resident is being disturbed, A, call the authorities, and B, what we've said too, call the landlord. It seems to me there's really kind of three parts here. The owner of the building, the students, and the residents all have some responsibility in that. And we used to get complaints a week or so after the event. And this woman would say, "Did you know there was a party at something at your house, and why didn't you do anything about it?" Well, nobody told us. So you try to get at least the neighborhood, and the so-called neighborhood watch kind of thing, try to get some of that going. Across the street from us are two student houses on Chestnut Street. And I've gone over and suggested that perhaps it's time to quiet down. And then I go over a second time, and things have been fine since, but it's early in the year. So there's some responsibility. There's no need for a resident to sit there and take it. The resident has some responsibility too. But if it continues, then...
Some of my neighbors are scared of them late at night, and you know them. You've seen them sitting here in your classroom quietly talking about aquifers, but I don't think you can overestimate the fear factor from people who don't have any interaction.
There's some intimidation, and yes, I think that's true. They're worried about repercussions.
I'm just kind of worried about what they'll say, but they're just worried.
Did you go over there with a baseball bat intimidate them?
So we're gonna do mayor's.
Your mayor's badge?
Yeah, no,
What is that interaction like when you talk to the students, when you say, "Get quiet down"?
I said, it's quiet down. It's as simple as that.
And they-
And the next call is going to go to the landlord, and to the police. So, yeah, well, the landlords, one of the things the village has done to kind of assist in this is we have what's called a nuisance abatement law. And what happens on that, if a residence gets 3 convictions for whether it be noise violation or let's say property maintenance or drinking, 3 convictions at a house, then the landlord is responsible for a fine. Can go to court for a fine. The landlords, for the most part, have written that into their leases now, so that's passed on then down to the residents themselves. So this nuisance abatement has had some impact. It's been in place just a couple of years, and that has had some impact on the whole thing.
It sounds like that impact in making the students have to pay more.
Yeah,
But it hasn't had an impact really on the landlords because they just pass it along.
but the landlords are involved, and there's,
Although many of them are very good at keeping their phone numbers private or else unplugging the phones after 11 o'clock
Yeah.
on weekend nights.
yeah, we can do that.
Who owns the house between Anlucas and the Scruggs?
His name is Mike Sharman.
Certainly good citizens.
He lives in Livonia. I think he used to be a school teacher, and I saw him the other day, so I guess he's retired.
Yeah.
But I think he lives in Livonia, so he's an absentee landlord.
But he's an absentee landlord, but whatever he does with that house works.
Yeah.
Because he lives, it's right, very close, you know, not much side yard between 2 pretty grumpy people. And
House pushed back.
it's the White House, there's the house on the corner, and then there's,
It's actually
White House.
Right on the side.
and then there's Ann's house, yeah. It's right beside Ann's walk. But yeah, but she never has complaints about them.
And there are a lot of good landlords
Yeah.
around. There's a few that aren't so good, I would say that, but for the most part, most of the landlords are pretty responsible. Sort of like with your parents kind of thing, but every now and then there's some bad interactions between students and landlords. But I think certainly the thing that you guys can do, all of you, is get involved in the community, whether it be through the churches or the interfaith center, or this big brother, big sister. There's just lots of opportunities. They have the fair right at the beginning of the year, the volunteer fair. I guess they have that at the beginning of each semester. And there'll be probably 30 or so organizations in college union. Then they'll have tables out of giving you opportunities that are available. But the other thing I think you got to keep in mind is, why are you here? You're here to study, and you go off and do all these volunteer things and sort of forget the basic purpose of coming to college, and that is to pay attention to the studies and what have you too. That's pretty important. But you will find that the people in the community are just like your parents, and the circle of friends that you have in the neighborhoods. It's absolutely no different. The major difference would be a significant population between the ages of, as I said, 18 and 22. And you look at the census, the Geneseo census, and you look at that, and say, we're a very young population. In actuality, it's because of all you guys, 5,000 of you folks that are over here.
Thank you so much. I need to see them for like 3 minutes before their class ends. And did anybody have a burning question that you didn't get to ask that, you know, your video is going to be bereft without you to ask anybody? Cool. Okay.
Yeah.